Jalen, do you sell drugs? What? No. Family sell drugs. I laughed. You're for real right now. His stoic face answered for him. And not that it should matter, but I don't really have a family. So no, they aren't kingpins in the drug game. Consider yourself lucky. No family is the way to go. No hassles. No buying gifts for ungrateful nieces and nephews who think just because you own a couple of properties, you're Diamond Jim Brady. It gives me heartburn just thinking about it. I'm guessing you have a family. Against my will. Terry, the haggard-looking landlord, told me as we walked through the living room of his rental. While the inside left a lot to be desired, the area that it was in was a prime location. Row houses lined the street, which gave the entire neighborhood a cozy and charming look. With what I make at my job, I could barely afford cozy. There was no way that I should be able to afford a charming too. Finding this place was like finding a needle in a stack of other needles. Still, Terry's weird family issues aside, his drug question bothered me. I had to know what the man was truly about, if for no other reason than my own curiosity. If he was going to be my landlord, I should know how his brain works, recalibrate my expectations. Why did you ask if I sell drugs? Oh, don't make a civil rights case out of it, kid. I ask all the applicants that. Is that legal? Who can say, look, it ain't your race that I care about. I'll rent to whoever has green, okay? I learned a long time ago not to trust renters. People with no skin in the game often treat their house like a hovel. I've dealt with that in the past, he said, nodding down at his hurt leg. I don't need the other pin getting knocked down, you understand. I did, and I felt bad about dredging up bad memories for the guy, but it did help set my mind at ease. Not sure if I believe the whole "I don't care about your race" statement, but I bought his desire to earn money. Terry was a gruff guy who had dealt with some nasty stuff in the past. I can't imagine how violent things got for him to have a permanent limp. Probably wasn't pretty. Terry's limp was limiting, so this tour went on longer than I had anticipated. The extra time allowed me to hear Terry's personal thoughts on topics that a landlord probably shouldn't be discussing with a potential client. As we moved into the kitchen, he gave me a rundown on a litany of things: the age of the appliances, his views on the current state of the world, why he hates modern sports, why the rent was significantly lower here than anywhere else in the neighborhood, and why he hates dogs. I responded only to the rent question. Why is the rent so much cheaper here? Even with his bum leg, Terry dodged and weaved like Muhammad Ali. He finally settled on a milquetoast. I've had a hard time keeping people here is all. What, because you live across the street? The look he gave me would leave scars on a lesser person. I pivoted. It's unusual is all. But this place is great. It has curb appeal, it's close to the train, and the number of rooms for the rent. I kind of think it's a steal. Yeah, I know, I wrote the ad. So what gives? You always ask this many questions, he asked, giving me an eye. I wanted to respond, but he didn't let me. Yeah, you got me, kid. I have a hard time keeping people here because some people swear that they see a ghost or whatever, he said in a mocking voice. I laughed. He didn't. Are you serious? I ain't ever seen anything, and if I did, I ain't getting away from them with this busted pin of a leg. Still, I gotta tell you about it, so consider yourself told. Where does most of the activity take place? Basement. People stay away from down there, but I've owned the property for years and I ain't ever seen anything. What do people see? Ah, geez, he said, resting his heft on the counter. The last broad who stayed here said she heard scratching and knocking in the walls at night. Strange voices. A lady before her saw a guy with a pale face and rows of pointy teeth or something, I don't know. She was hysterical. Gone the next day. That's more than I was expecting, I said, meaning every word. You hear a ghost, you think of an orb or, I don't know, shadows. Not something with pointy teeth. Had a pretty young thing about 10 years ago rented the place for a spell. She was determined to use the basement as a knitting room or something. I told her about everything and she said she didn't believe in that crap. What happened? She never finished the blanket she was knitting, he said with a smile. Never came back for her stuff. Hawked it all and made back most of that month's rent. Silver lining and all that. As he laughed, I noticed something odd. There was a lock on the basement door. I had to assume these two things were related. Terry confirmed my suspicions. I didn't want to add to it, but the last tenant was a drama queen. Always complained about noises down there, worried it would come up and get her or something, I don't know. Some broads are just out of their minds. Of course, she left right after I put it on. What I get for being a nice guy. While I'm still single, I always attract the crazies. I had a hard time believing that Terry attracted anything other than harassment complaints. He was off-putting, but his property was nice. I had to give him that. Why did she want a lock on there? She said it would keep her safe, I don't know. Said she locked it every night and the ghoulies or whatever stayed down there. Can't ghosts just walk through walls? Like I said, she was a few sandwiches short of a picnic. She threatened to go to the cops if I didn't add the lock, or that without it, she didn't feel safe. I don't know. Place is hard enough to rent with the ghosts. Didn't need to add in the cops as well. Who locks the basement door? Oddballs, not worth the fight. Whatever, she's gone. The past is best left in the past. So, are you signing the lease or what? I signed. Despite the concerns about ghosts, the price was too good to pass up. Plus, it was central to everything in my life. I thought I'd be able to handle some shadows on the wall or bumps in the night. I thought if things got too bad, I would hire a priest to come and bless the house. That worked in the movies anyway. I moved in a few days later. I didn't have a lot of things, but the act of unpacking boxes is a war of attrition. It never ends. Eventually, the cardboard wins out. I had planned to finish everything by the first weekend. By week 2, I still had the last few boxes haunting me, and the boxes were the only things haunting me though. The promised ghost had yet to rear its head. Sure, I had heard some noises, but I figured it was the house settling or rats and other assorted urban vermin making their appointed rounds. Nothing that scared me. I even went down into the basement and looked around. It was nothing but bare cinder block walls that trapped in the cold. The light bulb down there left a lot of shadowy corners, but I walked them all and saw nothing out of the ordinary. No angry ghosts wishing death upon me. No demons whistling to me in the dark. No portals off to strange lands. Though to be fair to Terry's past clients, I didn't like being down there. There was a vibe that felt off. I don't think it was those stories that tainted the place for me though. It was something more primal. My animal instincts alerted me that there was danger afoot, even though I saw nothing. Well, that's not true. I saw a mouse scurrying near the stairs. I placed a mouse trap and I kept the door locked. Overall, though, I was thrilled. I got a cheap place that I'd never be able to afford otherwise because a few people thought that they saw something spooky hanging around. After a few years of getting kicked in the teeth, it was nice to get a win. What's not to love? My good news streak came to an abrupt end last Tuesday. The transition to a new office and a new position was kicking my butt. My boss, an ogre in Brooks Brothers, had taken his club to me all day. While I didn't need him to act like a youth pastor or anything, I hoped he'd be a little understanding about my plight and cut me some slack as I learned the ins and outs of a new position. I was wrong. Worse, my train was delayed for an hour mid-trip. on a humid day with no air. After sweltering and praying for a fix, got obliged by having the skies open up and drenched me as soon as I set foot outside the station. It poured for the rest of the walk home. Naturally, the storm ended as soon as I turned down my street. All I wanted to do at that point was take an edible, turn on Bob's Burgers, and eat fattening food on my couch. I wasn't in the mood to do anything productive. In fact, ordering food even seemed like too high of a mountain to climb, but I was willing to do it. All I wanted to do was bliss out. But as I got to my stoop, I found my front door cracked open. That put a dent in my plans. I was relieved that I hadn't popped the gummy on the walk home. Trying to deal with this while gradually getting high would have been a nightmare. Well, a larger nightmare, I suppose, because this still sucked. I stared at the door, trying to coax my brain into deciding what to do. Should I walk in and see if someone is inside? Should I call the cops and wait? Go see if Terry had seen anyone enter? And deciding that getting knifed by someone inside my house or talking to Terry again weren't the best for my mental health, I called the cops. I waited outside on the sidewalk for about an hour and played games on my phone until the squad car finally arrived. I told them the score and they did a sweep of my place. They found nothing. "Why is there a lock on the basement door?" one cop asked. "Landlord's decision." "Who locks a basement?" "My thoughts exactly. I just keep it locked and forget about it." It wasn't locked. Fuzzy bubbles popped in my brain. What? Unlocked. Must have forgotten to do it. I don't mess with it though. The cop shrugged. They gave me a case report number and some paperwork and then wished me well. I watched them drive off. As I did, I saw Terry peeking at me through his blinds. I waved. He shut the blinds. A picture-perfect illustration of our relationship. Feeling confident that I was safe, I went inside, opting against the weed for the moment. I locked up all my doors and windows and swept the entire main floor for hidden prowlers. My brain went into 12-year-old hide-and-seek champion mode. I left no stone unturned. When I was confident that there was no one hiding up here, I glanced over at my basement door and sighed. I needed to check down there too. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to not check and have it come back and stab me in my sleep later. I unlocked the door and looked down. The darkness loomed heavy. I flipped on the light. There was only one bulb down there and it wasn't exceptionally bright. I added "purchase a bright bulb" to my mental to-do list, sighed, and I headed down the steps. Our brains are an evolutionary miracle and also very sadistic. Why is it that when you find yourself in a tense situation, your mind suddenly decides that this is the time to remember every scary story that you've ever heard? Like no brain, I don't need to be reminded of the Amityville horror house at a moment like this, nor do I need to recall Midsummer. Ditto for any Stephen King story. Heck, I didn't even want to remember Terry telling me about the pale-faced man. I felt the gummy in my pocket and decided that it was time. I would have some lead time before I felt anything, and I should be able to sweep through the basement before then. If somebody was going to stab or possess me or whatever, I wanted to be as mellow as possible. My cortisol levels were already spiking. I didn't need to ladle on more. The cold was severe. You could feel it pressing against you. I wasn't sure if it was because I was underground or because there were legions of ghouls waiting in the dim light. As I got to the bottom of the steps, I glanced around and breathed a sigh of relief. All I found down there was the now cheeseless mousetrap and swirls of dust on the ground. "Who called the fuzz?" came Terry's voice from the top of the stairs. "What are you doing in my house?" I said, my surprise giving way to annoyance. "It's my house. You rent." "You can't just enter whenever you want," I said, feeling that annoyance slide into anger. "Easy, I'm just looking out for my investment. Maybe you'll understand someday. Most likely you won't. No offense, but I saw your credit history. I went to run up the stairs, but something on the floor caught my eye. It was faint and I almost missed it, but some part of my brain kept circling a section of the floor near the stairs. About a foot away from the bottom along the brick wall, I stopped, squatted, and saw a dusting of white powder. It felt slightly gritty but crumbled at my touch, like plaster or dried spackle. I glanced at the wall to determine where this might have come from, but I didn't see anything obvious. The walls were blocked, so it didn't come from there. I was baffled. "What are you doing?" the landlord asked. I turned my attention away from the mysterious Bob Villa residue and back onto him. "You can't just walk into my house, man. You may own the building, but once you agreed to rent it to me, it made your ability to enter a thing of the past," I said. "What are you gonna do about it?" he asked, giving me a crooked smile. His teeth were yellow and nicotine-stained. He had the look of a man who knew that he would get away with his transgression because he had gotten away with it so many times before. "We don't really need it to go this way, do we?" I said, marching up the stairs. I was easily a head taller, had about 30 pounds on him, and conservatively 15 years younger. I admired his pluck, but that would not mean much if punches were thrown. Plucky fellas get knocked out too. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," the landlord said, raising his hand and taking a step back. "I think this is getting blown out of proportion. I'm just coming by to see if you and, yes, the house are okay." "We're both great," I said. "Just ask in advance next time is all. It's an invasion of privacy." The landlord took a step back. Okay, I hear ya. You're right. No need to get your Victoria's Secrets in a wad, kid. Message received. Sorry for even caring. Next time, though, just come to me. I got a camera pointed at the place. Can't have the cops being a common sight around here. Like I said, I have a hard enough time renting this place out without it earning a reputation as a kingpin's hideout. I took a breath and calmed down. Terry was an A1 dick, but getting into it with him so early into my rental time wouldn't benefit me in the long run. Forgive me for blowing up, but it's been a day and then some. I understand. Happens to the best of us. My friend was supposed to drop by with some tools but never showed. "You do handiwork?" I asked. The drywall residue front of mind. Sometimes it depends on the job," he said, waddling to the front door. "Did you put up that wallpaper in the living room, or did that come with the place?" I asked, pointing at the ugliest designed wallpaper that I had ever seen. Just a mishmash of geometric shapes. It looked like a screensaver from the 90s or the back of a high school math book. He smiled. "It was on sale." "Shocking," I deadpanned. "Since you're alive and all, I'll leave you be. You have a good one. Hope the ghosties keep away from you." The sound of the front door closing made my whole body unclenched. I was sure that there hadn't been an intruder, not in the traditional sense anyway. Playing out the scenario in my mind, I assumed Terry had come over for some reason, failed to close the door, and then the wind opened it wider. I added set up security cameras to my growing mental to-do list before double-checking to ensure that all my things were still here. My mind was absolutely shot. Before work, I had planned to finish unpacking the last boxes, but the day made that impossible. Now that the house had been cleared of robbers, the couch, a pizza, and the edible seemed like the winning combination that I needed to relax my nerves. I placed my order and was scrolling through on the streaming options when I heard a knock at my front door. It was way too soon for the food, and I didn't have it in me to be gregarious with strangers in that moment, so I tried to ignore it. But like the telltale heart, the knocks didn't stop. I sighed and stood. As I did, I almost lost my balance and started giggling. The edibles had arrived. What a perfect time to chat with a stranger. I opened the door to find a petite woman with dyed green and black hair standing there. She had tats up and down her arms and pierced the dimple of her cheek. She was wearing a strategically torn pair of faded black jeans and a t-shirt for a band that I had never heard of before. Her makeup was dark and just south of Salem, but her smile was bright and friendly. "Dude, you're tall, like giraffe tall." I liked her immediately. I laughed. "Thank you?" It was her turn to chuckle. "Oh my god, sorry, I could tell from a distance you were, but didn't realize how tall until now. Of course, most people are taller than me, so you would think that I would be used to it." She laughed again. "Jesus, how was this for a first impression, huh?" You're not going to believe this, but this is the best interaction that I've had all day. So honestly, thank you. Oh, Terry's my landlord too, I get it. He's exhausting, huh? You live next door, I thought it was empty. I work odd hours, but yes. I'm June, your neighbor on the right. I saw you moved in a little bit ago and was waiting for the right time to come over and introduce myself. I'm Jalen, but you can call me Jay, I said, extending my hand. She shook it. Right on, Jay, there really isn't a shorter version of June. Never had a nickname. A few people call me Bug. Do you like that? She shrugged. Do you know any girls who like being called Bug? I laughed. So I should call you June. Oh, we're gonna be friends. I hope so, I said. I was trying to be smooth, but I could feel the rising highness sabotaging that part of my brain. It became apparent when I suddenly blurted out. The cops weren't here for me, by the way. I didn't think they were, she said. Most people would. Oh, it's a common occurrence with people who lived here, she said. There's always something going on. Ghosts. She blurt laughed it, and I felt the blood rush to my cheeks. What? I was told that there were ghosts here, I said sheepishly. Is that not the case? Oh, no, I've heard that too. It's just so funny to hear in polite company. Have you seen anything? In the 6 months that I've been here, I've heard a few things at night. Maybe seen a shadow or two, June said. I don't want it to be true though, so I'm choosing to ignore it exists. A good mentality. I ascribe to the power of deluded thinking, she said, adding a thumbs up and a wink for emphasis. I started laughing, but it went on a little longer and harder than I intended. The middle school worry of someone knowing I'm high came flooding into my brain, old anxiety packaged in a shiny fresh box. Fighting against it, I decided to confront it head on. Sorry if I'm like too giggly or whatever, but I think my edible is just starting to hit and I may have taken too much. Oh my god, June said, cracking up. Okay, you and I are gonna get along like peanut butter and jelly. I hit my vape a few times to work up the courage to come say hi. The relief I felt was genuine and spread to every limb in my body. Who knew being honest was the way to go? Why were you nervous? Oh, new person and all that, June said, her thoughts suddenly piling up like cars in a snowstorm. I didn't want to come off as weirder, I guess. Yeah, same. The conversation hit a lull. I was about to speak when I watched a man in a tweedy jacket walking down the sidewalk in front of us. He kept giving us sideways glances. It was as if he wanted to join in the conversation. I wasn't the only one who noticed. What's that guy's issue? I asked. Hey buddy, you need something, June yelled. The man acted surprised that we saw him. Instead of answering the tiny woman, he quickened his steps down the street. What a weirdo, June said as he turned the corner. Nice shoes though, those were powder blue 3s, I said. June's confused brow made me realize she had no clue what I was talking about. Jordans, nice ones. Oh, this may shock you, but I'm not much of a shoe girly, she said, nodding to her scuffed up dogs. But good to know that you are. I laughed. I am. Is that okay with you? She shrugged. Hey, you do you, she said with a smile. I collect vintage uranium glassware. We all got weird stuff in our closet. You have uranium in your house, next to mine. Oh, it's low levels, Jay, you're safe, she said with a grin. To make amends, you want a few hits off my vape? I know you took an edible already, but... Hell yeah, I said before adding. It's not made with uranium, is it? It glows green at the tip, so maybe. I mean, screw it. Why not make a night out of it? I want a gummy, it's cola flavored. She nodded. Hey, sharing makes good neighbors. Let me go grab it, I'll be right back. Sure, I said, widening the door. This might be a bit forward and cliche, but I have a pizza coming if you're hungry and not doing anything. That sounds amazing, she said. It's some meat lovers, is that okay? I'm down. Wait, June, I said, pausing. My tone got serious. Would eating a meat lover's pizza together technically make this a meat cute? Oh my god, she said, rolling her eyes. You did not just say that. Oh, did I blow it? Her smile told me that I hadn't. Not yet, at least. Let me grab my vape. I'll be back over in a jiff. June left and I shut the door. I let a long-needed smile cut across my face. Finally, after a day from hell, something good was happening. A cute, friendly neighbor plus the weed and pizza had turned my frown upside down. Forget about the ghosts. There was a knock at the door, and June must have sprinted. But when I opened it, I saw Terry standing there. My smile dropped. A knock this time. See, an old dog can learn new tricks. You hanging out with that green-haired girl. I'm not sure how that's any of your business. You want to get it wet with a freak girl, be my guest. But don't believe anything she says. She's a known liar, notorious. Not to be trusted. What? I ain't lied to you yet, boy. I told you about the ghost, didn't I? I don't think you're anything special, but you annoy me slightly less than she does. So I thought that I'd give you a heads up. And before I could keep going, June came out of her house. Taking this as a cue to leave, Terry did just that. As he walked away, he called out over his shoulder, Don't forget what I said. And June came over, vape in her hand, and saw Terry retreating to his hovel across the way. She thumbed at him. What did he want? Reminded me when rent was due. He's such a pain. He owns my place too. He weirds me out. He's something. So should we go inside and smoke? Terry seems like the kind of guy who would get all up in our business if we smoked outside. He'll get all up in our business regardless, but it looks like more rain might be coming. Indoors it is then. Just like our grandparents did. Let's pray our pipes aren't lead though. She smiled and walked into my house. As she passed, I glimpsed the man in the powder blue Jordans walking down the opposite side of the street. Again, he was glancing over at the house as if he had something to say, but he stayed quiet and kept moving. Why had he circled back? Either he was casing my place or the weed was making me paranoid. I see your place also has the Terry special wallpaper, huh? And June asked from inside my house. I walked back in and admired the horrible wallpaper. He said it was on sale. Oh, he probably stole it from an unsuspecting contractor. Sorry about the shape of the place, I'm still trying to finish unpacking. It's fine, it took me a month to finally get everything situated in my place. I find the last 10% or so takes forever to unpack. Yeah, I get home and I'm like, I don't want to do this, and I just don't. Hey, at least normally it's nothing too important. Just knickknacks you should have gotten rid of before the move. Oh, I wish that were the case, I said sincerely. My life-saving medicine is inside these last few boxes. I should really get to it. Well, hey, I don't know CPR, so don't die on me, okay? I'll try my best, no promises though. Here, she said, handing me the vape. It's indica, is that okay? I'm not planning on doing anything anyway, I said, Taking a long pull of the vape, I handed it back to her and exhaled a cloud. A coughing fit followed. I tried to play it off like it was nothing, but before too long, it moved into a full-on attack. June patted and rubbed my back. Despite feeling like my lungs were about to come out of my mouth, her touch felt nice. "You okay?" she asked. "I'll live," I said, trying to act fine as soon as the cough subsided. "Virgin lungs?" she asked, giving me a smirk and a raised eyebrow. "It's why I take edibles." She took a long pull on the vape and blew out a plume of smoke. No coughing, total pro. Now they're fun too, but I like the ritual of smoking. Religious in a way, I suppose, she said. "So, where's your ghost portal?" "The basement too. That's what Terry told me." "Same. Should we go check it out?" That kicked off another jag. June took the vape from my hands and cackled. Once I caught my breath, I asked, "Are we the Scooby-Doo gang?" She laughed. "Well, am I Velma or Daphne? Depends on whether I'm Fred or Shaggy." Shaggy's soulmate wasn't Velma, it was Scooby, she joked. Velma is part of Fred and Daphne's polycule. Oh, that's a twist that Hanna-Barbera never explored. "Maybe not in the movies you watch," she said, taking a hit of her vape. She noticed the lock on the basement door. "You have one too." "He put it on your door too." "It was there when I moved in 6 months ago. I asked and he said the last tenant had asked him to after." "She heard noises down there," I said, joining in. "He told me that too. Said she insisted or she would go to the cops," June echoed. "Do you go into your basement at all?" "Oh, no way, bad vibes from the start. Have you gone down there?" "A few times, but I get the same bad feeling. Have any sage? Maybe we could smudge our places clean of evil spirits." June took a hit of the vape and walked over to the door. She held it out like a bundle of sage and blew the smoke out. "Dear Heavenly Father, or whoever's watching us, please cleanse this house." And we both started laughing. And then there was a knock on the living room wall behind us. The laughter instantly stopped, and we clustered together out of instinct. Herd animals circling up for protection. After a brief stillness, I took a small step toward the living room. June followed on my heels. There was another knock from the far wall, and then there was what sounded like scurrying behind it. I felt my shoulders relax, and I started laughing. June looked confused at my sudden about-face. "Mice," I said, "in the walls. I saw one the other day and put a trap in the basement." She visually unclenched. "The trap didn't work." A little thing swiped the cheese like a seasoned thief. "I think maybe it's a ghost mouse," June offered. "Explains why he didn't take the stairs up here. Couldn't get past the magical lock now that I blessed it." "Real talk. Have you had any real stuff happen since you've been here? I mean like real weird stuff." "And beyond what I told you, no, but Sheila, the last girl to live here, saw something." "You knew her?" Meh," she said. "We spoke a few times, but we weren't besties or anything. She hated living here though. She made that clear the few times we talked." "Why?" "I don't want to scare you away, not yet at least." "I'll be okay, I promise." "Let's just say it was related to things that Scooby and the gang would investigate." "Ah, yes," I said, pausing a second for sound effect. "You mean unmasking Old Man Withers in his haunted amusement park, right?" June started laughing and playfully touched my arm. I was a big fan of that move and felt my blood rush to my cheeks. "Yep. You know what I found incredible about that show? Nobody ever commented on Scooby talking. These guys were afraid of everything, but an animal having a chat was no reason to panic. True, if my childhood dog started asking me to make him some ginormous sandwich, I would at the very least ask him where he learned such disgusting recipes from. and then I would probably freak out about him speaking. Jesus Christ, Waggy, wax. I really want a wowich. June said in a pitch-perfect Scooby impression. That was the most impressive thing that I've seen today, I said, giving her a little golf clap. She bowed in response. I'll think a shiftless child had plopped in front of a TV. But what did Sheila really see? She hesitated. I wasn't sure why, but my gut feeling was that she didn't want to scare me off. I wanted to tell her with rent prices as they are, this thing would have to drag me out of here before I left willingly. She called him the pale-faced man, June finally said. She saw it once, but that was enough. Where? Basement, June said, nodding to the locks. Said she heard noises and cracked open the door to take a look. Saw the thing coming out of the wall. It looked at her and she screamed and ran to my place. A few hours later, we went back over there, but the thing was gone. She moved out a week later. Dang, was all that I could muster. Have you? No, and I don't want to. Life is hard enough without adding ghouls to it. A girl can only live with so much delusion. But let's not talk about scary stuff, okay? It'll make me paranoid. Fair enough. Shifting gears, what did Terry say after the cops came? He wasn't giving you crap or anything, was he? Oh no, not really, nothing that I'm not used to, I suppose. He sucks. He's always poking his little rat face into my business. There's something so untrustworthy about him. He said the same about you, I said before realizing that I shouldn't have. I blame the drugs. What did he say about me? Oh, nothing, just mentioned a general distrust, I said, taking another puff. How did he mention that he tried to sleep with me? That caused the coughing to return. I was going to ask what, but the words couldn't find their way through the hacking. June picked up on that. Oh yeah, and was gross about it too. He's a lecherous old man with ugly teeth and an even uglier soul. I can't imagine what he looks like naked, I joked. Don't make me sick before I eat. How do you think he hurt his leg? Oh, probably from. And then there was knocking at the door. For a fleeting second, my mind went to something in the basement knocking on the door. But then I remembered the pizza. The wave of relief that slammed into my body nearly made me stumble. I glanced at June and nodded. Hope you're hungry. Famished. I opened the door to a middle-aged man who looked like he'd rather be on the surface of the moon without a helmet than delivering pizza. He handed them over and I thanked him. He was about to leave, but he hesitated and then said, Hey man, not for nothing, but I saw some guy sneaking into your backyard as I pulled up. Might want to go take a look. Oh God, I said, the wave of relief rolling back into the sea of fear. Thanks man, I will. Hustling back to the kitchen with the pies, I felt a cool breeze coming from the basement. There shouldn't have been a cool breeze coming from the basement. The door had been unlocked and it was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and the hinges creaking like a sound effect from a cheesy horror movie, and I felt the cold air wrap around me like a shawl. Felt like I was standing directly under an AC vent. June was nowhere to be seen. Without venturing down into the darkness, I called out, June, are you down there? I heard some shuffling in the dark. It had to be her. I mean, where else would she be? June. No response. Don't make me call the mystery machine, I joked. More to break the tension that had cinched around my chest than to make anyone laugh. Loud footsteps echoed in the dark. I swallowed hard and took a tentative step onto the stairs. Under my weight, the wood groaned, or maybe that came from the thing in the basement. June, I whispered, there's a stranger in the backyard. I need to know that you're okay. I added, hoping that would get her to budge. It didn't. I sighed. I didn't really know June. I mean, she was the kind of girl that I wanted to get to know, but the warning that Terry gave me about her was weighing on me. He was a dirtbag, sure, but he had been honest about everything so far. Even if those truths made him seem creepy and repulsive, that kind of conviction gave me pause. From the basement, more noises bubbled up. Somebody was dragging something heavy. There was nothing down there, let alone anything heavy enough to drag. The cinching feeling tightened. Was there an actual ghost in my basement or just a flighty neighbor with boundary issues? As I worked up my courage to go down and find out, I clocked a shadow gliding past my kitchen window. That cinching feeling in my chest had nearly cut me in half. I moved away from the stairs and silently closed the door. Moving like Santa delivering presents, I tiptoed to the window and split open the blinds to get a better look at my backyard. But I didn't see the old oak tree or the dilapidated cyclone fence. Instead, I saw something I assumed was just a story. A mere razor-thin window pane away from me was the pale-faced man. He was just as Terry had described him. A pale white face, no hair, black, lifeless eyes, teeth sharpened to points. We locked eyes, and for a brief second, everything around me slowed and stilled. Those black, lifeless eyes, a doll's eyes, bore holes through my soul. My muscles spasmed along my spine, and I thought this thing had moved through me. As reality returned to my frontal cortex, I stumbled back and let out a yell that would have woken the dead. I felt my legs go all smuckers and my center of gravity fall. Right before I tipped over, and I felt tiny hands press into the small of my back, and the shock kept me upright. I spun on my heels and saw June standing there. "What the hell is going on?" she asked. "I nearly went butt over tea kettle there. Mice can't hold up giraffes, dude." "I saw the pale-faced man outside." "Shut up, not funny." "I'm not joking." I watched the smile fade from her face. "What were you doing in the basement?" "What?" "I heard you down there. What were you doing?" "Dude, I went to the bathroom. I'm not going into the basement alone. Are you crazy?" This sent my head spinning. I know what I heard. "Are you messing with me?" June nervously laughed. No, I had to pee. Was that not okay?" "I swear to God you were down there. I heard footsteps." "Jay, don't take this personally, but I'm not about to go into the basement of a man that I just met, even if he's been as rad as you've been." "Yeah. But like that goes double if all previous discussions about said basement were about how haunted it may be," she said, patting my bicep to calm me. "My mom didn't raise an idiot. A slothful weirdo, sure, but not a dumb one," she said, keeping her hand on my arm. It was a touch that I needed. It helped ground me, bring me back from the brink. That makes sense. Sorry, it's just, what the heck is happening? I think maybe that weed is getting to you. Should we rain check the pizza party for another day? Slam. The basement door shut so hard that both of our skeletons nearly achieved escape velocity from our skin. After we caught our breath, I tried to rationalize why the door had just slammed shut. A draft in the basement, right? It would have closed a cracked door. I'm going to go with that story, delusional thinking and all. Because there's no way that thing could get inside, right? If the lock on the basement door keeps it at bay, it can't phase through walls or whatever. I love that logic, June said, crossing to the closed door and locking it. Just in case. A low rumble in the distance broke the silence. Another storm was heading our way. To add insult to injury, as another distant drum roll filled the sky, the power in the house flickered. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Seriously. Oh yeah, in rainstorms, the power in our units gets temperamental. Oh, this gets better and better. There was knocking again. We froze. This time, it was coming from the basement door. June wisely moved behind me. I placed my half-chewed pizza on the counter. My heart hammered like John Henry's hammer. Goosebumps raced up my arms as if the devil was chasing them to my fingertips. My cotton mouth, already bad, became the goby. I could feel June's hands grab the back of my shirt and nervously twist it into a knot. It became skin tight after several twirls. "What the heck is that?" she whispered. I didn't respond. Silence was the only appropriate rejoinder. I could hear the stairs squeak as somebody stood there. My eyes shot to the handle and watched as the figure on the other side started twisting. "Hey!" I finally barked. That stopped the twisting. "Scare it," she whispered into my ear. Scare a ghost. My life was officially off the rails, but she had a point. Maybe I could chase it back down. I was out of ideas though, and anything that seemed like it would stick to the wall was worth trying. I rushed to the door as loudly as possible. As I did, I heard someone run down the stairs. There were a few more noises from the darkness before a loud thunderclap overtook everything. After the thunder stilled, all noise in the basement ceased. Silence returned. "This is so trippy," June said. "What is going on? You said you've seen the ghost before, right?" "Well, I saw it at night. It was just a figure at the end of my hallway. It watched me for a minute before I turned and ran into the street. When I came back home, it was gone." It seems the same thing is haunting both of our places. "Well, that's not a sentence you hear every day," June said, finally letting go of my shirt. I felt it unwind and go slack against my skin. "What should we do here?" I was about to answer when my eyes caught a shadow in the back window. Something was moving through my backyard. It was back. Not wanting to let this go again, I looked for a weapon and only found an old crutch that I had held onto for years. I grabbed it and plotted Tiny Tim's revenge as I sprinted for the back door. I burst through and found a lanky teen with a backpack slung over his shoulder. He screamed when he saw me burst out of the house, crutch held high and ready to strike. Before I could do anything, June came sprinting from inside the house and got in between us. "No, stop, this is David. He's a local kid who cuts through the yard after school. He's fine." "What?" I said to her, utterly confused and amped up. "I let him cut through the yard and he helps maintain my flower beds." "June, who is this? And why was he going to brain me with a crutch?" June laughed. "This is Jay. He lives here now. He's good people, I promise. Want a slice of pizza to make amends?" Sure, I guess," David said. June darted back into the house. I lowered my crutch and gave David a once-over. He was tall but thin with wispy facial hair. Acne filled in the gaps. "Sorry, bro," I said. "It's fine," he said, still leery of me. "It's been a weird day." "And did somebody threaten to hit you with a crutch too?" I had to give him credit for the zinger. June then came out with 2 pieces of pizza wrapped in paper towels and handed them to David. "Sorry about the confusion. He got this from Lazzini's, so you know it's quality pie." Thanks," David said, taking the pizza. "The begonias are looking good." "Oh, they're so pretty, aren't they? I'm glad I listened to you and got them." "Oh, and when I was checking on them, I found something weird," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out what looked like a set of dentures, except the teeth were pointy. "What the hell?" June said, looking at the teeth. As some ancient Mayans would file their teeth to points, but who would do that now? Who would order these? I walked over and looked at the set of false teeth in June's hand. These are what the ghost teeth looked like. "Wait, ghosts have teeth?" David asked, confused. "You still have to worry about hygiene even when you're dead. Dude, that sucks." I took the teeth from her hand and looked at them up close. These were exactly like the teeth the figure in the bushes had, but what were they doing in my hands? Was somebody pranking me by dropping these? All I knew was that going back inside right now seemed foolish. but I didn't have anywhere else to go. June's place had the same issues that mine did. Heck, even if we left, we would have to come back at some point, probably under the cloak of night, and that seemed unwise. Another thunderclap boomed. I looked up and saw storm clouds amassing above us. This brief respite was nearing an end. A few sudden flashes of lightning nearby sealed the deal. David and June had been chatting about flowers, but when the first couple of raindrops started to pitter-patter on our heads, the conversation ended. The kid left, and June and I were alone again. My head was spinning. Here I thought my rough time at work would be the height of my crappy day. Talk about a swing and a miss. The storm grew more violent. Mother Nature had forced us back inside. Fate seemed to have us descend into the kitchen again. Well, fate and waiting pizza. The basement door was still closed and locked. We didn't discuss going to check it out, but instinct took over, and we stood in front of the door. What the heck am I going to do about this? Bless it with holy water. I ran out last week. Well, you're gonna have to rob a church, it would seem, June said. Hey, if you need a wheelman for the job, I've got you. Maybe we should take a rain check on hanging out today. I don't want you to get hurt or, I don't know, cursed or something. And the more I've thought about it, the less I like that idea. The ghost haunts both places, right? I don't know about you, but I would rather be with somebody if it comes back. You sure? I am, she said. Plus, I'm still hungry. I was too. June's calm attitude helped ease my nerves. Promise that if this thing comes back, you're gonna help me kick its butt. I'm gonna pretend like I haven't kicked somebody with these docs, she said with a wink. I was about to respond, but she quickly fessed up. Actually, I've never gotten into a fight before. Not viable at my stature, but I'll be here for moral support. Deal. So against the odds, we settled down on the couch, sitting a respectable distance apart, and endlessly scrolled for 20 minutes on every streaming platform imaginable. Naturally, we ended up picking an old comedy that we had both seen a dozen times. It made the avenue for conversation wider. We wouldn't have to worry about missing something important if we already knew the story. The weed helped melt both of us into the couch, and for the next hour, we laughed and joked and had an amazing time. From a distance, you would forget that a ghost lingered in our homes. And that's when the sounds in the walls started. It was almost imperceptible at first. The movie and our chatter and the rain pinging off the windows filled the void with noise. But as the conversation died, our ears picked up the sounds of shuffling coming from the walls. I paused the movie and cocked my ear towards where I had heard the sound. It was directly across from us. I didn't have to finish. June's concerned look told me she had. I stood and made my way over to the wall. I put my ear against the god-awful wallpaper and listened for any movement. At first, I could only hear the patter of rain and the occasional thunderclap. I was about to turn back when I heard the floorboards from inside my bedroom squeak. I turned to June, and her terrified eyes told me that she heard the squeaking too. I grabbed the crutch that I had nearly beaten Flower Boy with and made my way toward my bedroom. June had moved to the edge of the couch, her hands clasped together and shaking. I could relate. My palms were so sweaty you would think the rain was pouring from them and not the clouds. I used the tip of the crutch to push open my door, just enough to reach in and flip on the light. Right before I was about to slap on my bedroom light, we heard knocking from the basement door, followed by someone rushing down the stairs. The hell? I muttered. There was a thunderclap and the power went out. June let out a yelp, and I dropped the crutch and ran back toward the couch to comfort her. But my foot caught one of the boxes that I hadn't unpacked, and I fell flat on the floor with a loud thud. As I lay on the ground, a little bird swirling around my head, I heard the faint sounds of someone breathing. I wasn't sure if it was June's panicked breaths or something more sinister. "You okay?" I said, finally getting to my knees. "Are you?" "I'll live," I said. As I did, the power flickered back on. June ran over to me and helped me to my feet. I didn't need it, but I was glad she helped. At least I wasn't alone. "Should we get back to the—" 3 loud knocks. Fear seized my heart for a moment before I realized it was coming from the front door. A second later, the fear turned into annoyance when I heard a familiar voice call out, "Open the door, kid. I gotta tell you something about the fuse box." It was Terry. "He might be the scariest thing that we've experienced tonight," June joked. It broke the tension and we both laughed. I made my way over to the door and pulled it open. Standing there, wet as a seal, was Terry. He looked miserable, more so than normal. "Terry, what's up?" That rainstorm reminded me to tell you to not mess with the fuse box, okay? It's, well, touchy. Friend of mine did the work and it's a little convoluted. Shocking if you follow." I was sure that he meant not up to code, but I didn't bother. He continued, "The power's been flickering all night with the storm. If it goes out and you find a blown fuse, I touch nothing. Come get me, I can fix it. It's tricky, and if you touch it well, you might get fried. A burnt renter smell is impossible to get out, and it really tanks the value of the place." I laughed. I mean, what else could I do? This man was insane. "If the power goes out, I'm not doing anything but calling you." "Perfect," he said, looking past me. He lowered his voice. "If you and green hair are gonna get friendly later, be careful because the walls are paper thin and the neighbor next to you complains about noise. She seems like a screamer." "I'll keep that in mind," I deadpanned. "All right, stay dry or don't, what do I care?" He waddled off my porch and back into the steady rain. "Is everything okay?" June asked. "Yeah, you want to finish the movie or—" "My favorite part is coming up," she said, patting the couch. "Come on." And so I did. Nothing much happened after, and we soon relaxed. When the credits rolled and our bellies were full of pizza, I wasn't sure where we were going to go from here. June must have had the same thought because she stood and looked at the time on her phone. "I should get home. Early day tomorrow, and I have a midnight meeting with the Toothless Ghoul." "I think the Toothless Ghoul double booked us. I have a midnight meeting too." She handed me her phone. "Add your number, okay?" I did as I was told. When I handed it back, she held it up to take a photo. "In case I get amnesia or something and forget what you look like." "Oh man, I'm gonna look high as hell," I said. "Well, you are." She snapped the photo and handed me the phone to get final approval. "I'm just praying that I look better in your phone than I do on my ID." I looked down at the picture and felt a chill race through my body. On the wall behind me, I saw a pair of eyes staring at us. I twisted around, but the eyes were gone. Instead of pupils, I noticed something that I had missed every time I had looked at this wall. Hidden in the hideous pattern of shapes were 2 tiny holes. If you weren't looking for them, you would never see them. I tapped on the wall. It sounded hollow. "What's wrong?" I didn't respond. I punched the area where somebody had cut out the eye holes. The drywall gave way like paper. June let out a yelp and I started coughing from the drywall residue in the air. I ripped off another chunk and looked inside the hole. Crammed in between the walls a mere 2 feet away, I saw a pale face and dark eyes staring back at me. Something was missing and then it clicked. The teeth. He was missing those razor-sharp teeth because I had them sitting on my kitchen table. "It's in the wall," I said. "The ghost?" I looked down and saw a pair of powder blue Jordans as the ghoul disappeared around the corner. "It's not a ghost." I pulled my head out of the hole, my face covered in sweat and drywall residue, my eyes wild with fear and anger. What is it? A man. We heard scrambling in the basement, dozens of footsteps. It sounded like a herd of elephants on a stampede. Either the ghosts were agitated or the man in my walls was trapped down there. I ran toward the basement door as the power went out again. I stopped in my tracks, absolutely blinded by the dark. Jay? In the kitchen. What are you doing? I've got to go down into the basement. Well, I'm coming with you. No. Save the tough guy act. 2 against 1 are better odds. Scooby needs a Shaggy. I knew I wouldn't win this fight, or less importantly, find out if I'm the Scooby after all, but June was right. If this were a man and he were fighting for his freedom, he was going to scrap. I didn't want June to get hurt, but if she was willing to follow me into the breach, I had to respect it. She stumbled toward me. I held out my arm and she found my hand in the darkness. Without a word between us, I opened the door. The cold wrapped around us, but I was beyond caring about temperature. It was quiet now. Whatever had been down there was gone or hiding. Neither idea thrilled me. We quickly descended into the basement. I pulled out my phone and flipped on my flashlight. The beam was weak, but it cast a small halo of light in front of us. The first corner I checked revealed nothing but the cinder block wall. I slid the beam to the adjacent corner, and it was more of the same. With just 2 more corners to check, I had a sinking feeling that the results would be the same. We moved away from the stairs and circled them. My faint light panned across the gray wall uninterrupted. As my beam hit the empty 3rd corner, we heard my front door open. Frantic running of someone with a bad leg. Terry. Jesus, are you 2 okay down there? I was about to respond, but June clamped her hand over my mouth. She leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "How did he know I was still here?" I wanted to dismiss the question. Maybe he assumed she was still here. But the idea that I kept circling back to was that he must have been watching the house, waiting to see when we split up. But why? Was he just a creep, or was he overly concerned about 2 of his tenants getting together? Kid, I saw something climbing out your window. I think you might have been robbed. Come up here, it ain't safe down there in the dark. He might have had somebody working with them. That was my cue to turn my light to the last corner. I half expected to see that pale face and black eyes staring back at me. As my light beam moved across the gray, there was a loud snap, followed by something skidding along the floor toward the first corner that we had checked. I flashed my light there and saw that something had set off the mousetrap and tossed it here. I didn't. The sound of something on the stairs forced us to turn around. I expected to see the blur of a body dashing up, but what I saw instead was a well-worn flashlight bouncing down the landing. As it hit, the light shut off, plunging us back into darkness. Terry cursed. "Oh, Butterfingers. Grab that thing when you come up, okay?" June leaned into me and whispered, "Somebody ran up those stairs. He dropped that to cover for them." I flashed my light into that last corner, but like the others, it was empty. The man from the walls had disappeared into thin air. The only people down here were June and me. Terry stood at the top of the stairs, blocking our only way out. Dread and bile rose in my throat. "Hey, you hear me? I said you were robbed. Come up here and let's sort this out. Cops are bad for business. Nobody wants to rent in a high crime zone." I leaned in close to June's ear. "Where did the guy go?" "Maybe he's inside the walls again," she said, motioning for me to point my light up at the ceiling. I did. I was looking for a hatch or a hole big enough for a person to shimmy up. As we dutifully scanned around for an exit, Terry began shuffling upstairs. He walked towards where I had punched a hole in the drywall and stopped. "Jesus, what happened here?" You and that floozy get wild and break my walls. I'm tacking on the repair cost to your rent." We ignored his prodding and kept up with ours. There had to be a place where this guy escaped to. We heard him in the basement. He didn't just disappear. We got back to the first corner and June stopped my arm. She pointed up at the corner of the ceiling. At first, I saw nothing, but then my eyes caught what looked like a coiled snake ready to attack. But this wasn't an anaconda. I jumped up and knocked it down from the perch that it had been placed on. It was a rope ladder. And gripping the sides and seeing that it could hold my weight, I decided to climb up. I took the first few steps and felt June's hand on my leg. "Where are you going?" she asked, the panic oozing from each syllable. "I have to see what the hell this is." "What about me?" "I'll just pop up and see and then head back down." "Jay, I'm scared." "I am too. Let me see where this goes. Hide under the stairs and if somebody comes down, yell." I shimmied up the rope. It led to an opening that was a bit of a tight fit, but once I got my shoulders through, I was able to get all the way up. I found myself standing within the walls of my house. I scanned the wall with my light. There were dozens of small holes bored through the drywall. There had to be dozens more all over the house. The tight fit between the walls made moving a slow-going prospect. I didn't want to alert anyone that I was here. From where I was standing, I could hear a person speaking softly. It must have been Terry, but who would he be talking to? No way the cops got here and we didn't hear them. Maybe he was on the phone. I shimmied through the dark corridor, occasionally snagging my clothes on loose nails and running into conduit wires. I tried to remain as quiet as a little mouse working through a habit trail, but I felt like Frankenstein's monster walking down the aisle in a small plane. My elbows and knees knocked into everything in front of me. My eyes had finally adjusted to the darkness, and as I turned the corner to the tiny corridor, I could see where I had punched a hole in the wall. This was where Terry was now. I realized he wasn't talking on the phone. He was talking to the man from the walls. Their voices were low and the wall muffled what they were saying, but like the sun behind a storm cloud, the occasional ray broke through. Instead of warming your skin, these rays burned it to a crisp. "They saw you? Oh, Jesus, you leave. They still think that I'm a ghost. I think I'll leave and don't come back, not for a while. Tell everyone to scatter." There was some more back and forth, but I couldn't make out what. I was already too concerned with what scraps that I had already heard. The full picture would be a horror show. I heard the front door open and the man from the walls left in a hurry. As soon as the door closed, Terry muttered a stream of curse words under his breath. He sighed and began to fiddle with something. When I heard the snap of a revolver cylinder, I knew that I had to get back down to June. I quickly and quietly backtracked through the tiny corridor. I'm sure that I made a racket, but Terry was so preoccupied with heading toward the basement that he didn't hear me. By the time that I got to the rope ladder, Terry had made it to the top of the basement stairs. "Say, not sure why you're ignoring me, but you're starting to piss me off. Come on up here and let's have a conversation. We need to figure out our next steps." I climbed down as fast as the swaying rope ladder would let me. June was about to speak, but I shushed her before one word came tumbling out. I mimed Terry holding a gun. Her face dropped and tears formed in her eyes. I shushed her again, leaned in close and whispered, "Climb up the ladder and pull it up behind you. Stay hidden until I find you." "What if—" She started, but the falling tears crossing her lips seemed to glue them shut. She had more to say, but the words would never come. "If something bad happens to me, run to where I punched a hole and Kool-Aid Man through the rest of the drywall, and then run away and call the cops." She nodded and we heard Terry's bulky body and bad leg take the first step. I held the ladder and motioned for her to head up. After a brief hesitation, she started to climb. I watched and made sure that she pulled the ladder up behind her. When we locked eyes, I didn't know what to say. Though I had just met her, trauma bound us tighter than expected. It's panko in the meatballs that helps hold their shape. I didn't have the words, but not surprisingly, June did. Be safe, Shaggy. I smiled. You too, Scoob. The creaking on the stairs brought my attention back to the horrors at hand. Terry was coming down with a gun and a plan to eliminate us. His quizzing me about my family on my initial tour made sense now. He was looking for the right kind of person to move in here. Someone who wouldn't have family come looking if they went missing. I'm gonna be honest, boy, making me climb down these stairs with this bum leg isn't going to reflect kindly on your future in this place. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I knew that if I hid in the dark, I could hide behind the stairs and surprise him. Physically, I was in better shape and thought that I would be able to get the gun away from him before he used it. But that was it might cost me my life if though. Maybe I could hide and dart up the stairs once he moved away from them. Again, a lot of risk. Something curious happened in that moment though. Something that I had heard before and assumed was rats infesting the walls, scurrying around. I heard it again now, right near the wall by the stairs. A lot of scurrying, in fact. More people were inside the walls. That made little sense. It was a cinder block wall. Where would they hide? Like a flash of lightning from the storm, my mind lit up an old memory. The white residue that I had found on the ground the first time that I went into the basement. The residue was white like drywall. I had a wild idea and started tapping on the walls. Tap, tap, solid. Tap, tap, solid. Tap, tap, hollow. A false wall. Oh God. There was a tunnel down here too. I ran my hands around the top of the block wall and found a hidden latch. I pressed down, heard a click followed by the very pronounced squeaking of a hinge. What are you doing down there? Stay out of there! Terry screamed from the stairs. He hurried as fast as his bum leg would take him. As soon as I saw the tip of the gun come into view, I whipped open the hidden door and felt a blast of cool air. I also heard the voices of perhaps half a dozen men speaking and scurrying away from the opening. The tunnel was dimly lit with small disc lights along the floor, and it shot out in two directions from where I was standing. One path led to June's house, the other led across the street to Terry's house. I was gobsmacked. Holy hell, I mumbled as the realization hit me. He's using these tunnels to spy on us. From the direction of June's house, I heard somebody rushing toward me in the dark. I turned in time to see another pale-faced ghost rushing this way. In his panic to escape, he didn't see me standing there. I timed it so my fist hit his nose as he was brushing by. It exploded under my knuckles. The blow sent the guy to the ground. Like the others, his fake pointy teeth came flying out of his mouth and scattered into the darkness. I stood over him and a plan quickly took shape. I peeled the mask off the peeping Tom and placed it on my face. I told you, kid, I can't have the cops nosing around. If you would have just come upstairs, you'd be the latest in a long line of one-term renters. You and the little weirdo that you were screwing. I hid in the tunnel's darkness and waited. It was my turn to be the hunter, the watcher. I saw the hidden door open wider to accommodate Terry's girth. As soon as the barrel of the gun peeked through, I balled my fist and waited for my moment. Terry took a step in and noticed the unconscious man on the ground. Ah, hell, he said, and momentarily lowered the gun. Who is that? Carl? Of course it is. Stay put, I'll get somebody to drag your butt out of these tunnels after I fix this. He stepped all the way into the tunnel. His silhouette was barely visible in the low light, but but his big, fat mouth was all that I needed to see. "Terry," I whispered from the shadows. He turned and saw the pale white face and black eyes staring back at him, his own ghost coming back to haunt him. The mix of panic, fear, recognition, and realization on his face was pure delight for me. I coiled my body like Shohei Ohtani waiting on a high fastball and swung my fist with the fury of every renter that this ghoul had victimized. The pop of my hand hitting his face will forever be etched in my mind. The click that followed told me that I had dislocated his jaw. He tumbled back and thumped his head on the hidden door before sliding down and landing in a heap on the floor. I kicked the gun away from his limp hand and heard it skitter into the darkness. I thought about grabbing it, but Terry wasn't getting up. If he did, I had a second helping for him. In the air, I could hear the wailing of approaching sirens. June must have got out and called the cops. I stepped over Terry's snoozing body and came face to face with her. She screamed and fell back. She started crab walking up the stairs, the fear palpable in her movements. I realized that I still had the mask on. I pulled it off and I called to her. Once she saw my face, she stilled. After catching her breath, she shook her head and punched me in the arm. It stung. She would have held her own. "Dude, what the heck?" "Sorry. Why are you wearing that?" I shrugged. "I wanted to be a Scooby-Doo villain, I guess." "Well, it doesn't suit you," she said, standing back up. "A hero does, though." "Hey, you called the cops. You saved us," I said, taking a step toward her. "I'm in awe, actually." "Where's Terry?" "Sleeping," I said. Screw him." I started laughing. "Crazy to think that we did all this while coming down from those edibles earlier. I think we might have found our Popeye spinach," she said, with a smile that lit up the darkness of the basement. I took another step toward her, and I found my hands in hers. Look, this feels weird and wrong considering everything that we've just been through, but I'm kind of... She grabbed me by my shirt and pulled me in for a kiss. All the fear and terror and confusion melted away in that moment. In a world that had delivered nothing but crap for so long, we both savored a genuinely wonderful moment. They're increasingly rare, so when you stumble into one, enjoy it. "Oh, you sons of a..." Terry said, slurring his words and trying to stand back up. "I'm gonna kill..." In a flash, June broke from our embrace and landed a kick to Terry's mouth. We heard a sickening snap from his jaw. His head hit the false wall once more and he went back to sleep. June loomed over him like Ali over Liston. "Piece of trash," she barked, adding a gob of spit for emphasis. She turned to me and a smile broke out on her face. "Oh, that was my first fight. How did I do?" I walked over to her and gave her another deep kiss. I felt her body melt into mine. For that brief, fleeting moment, everything was all right. That's how the police found us when they came storming into the house seconds later. They held us up for a bit but let us go after we explained what was happening. The police arrested Terry. In the following months, the full weight of his crimes were revealed. It was a lot more sinister than unlicensed tunnels. We're still learning just how much of a monster he was. It turns out after he bought the townhouses across from his place, he built the tunnels connecting them. Once he had unlimited access to his new homes, he rented them out to the most vulnerable people that he could find. People from broken homes, runaways, or people with no surviving family. At first, he was the only one who watched them shower and dress and all the other private things that we do in our homes when we think that we're alone. But then he started selling access to other weirdos. An underground economy emerged and soon dozens of seedy men sought him out. Initially, he only found younger women, but once he started selling access to others, he expanded his services to include men to meet some of his new clients' demands. He eventually gave the police a bunch of names, and they even caught all of them. Terry had turned this into an industry. He told everybody about ghosts as a cover to prevent people from entering the basement and discovering the tunnels. You tell somebody that ghosts live down there, most people stay away. If they persisted in using the basement, he ramped up the defense to drive them out. He created a friction that his renters could fear so he could create a reality where his weirdos could thrive. Knock on basement doors at night, scurry through the walls, turn off their power from an illegally installed master switch at your place. Make the weirdos dress in masks and teeth to scare anyone who spots them. You build the legend to cover the truth. It worked for years until the Mystery Machine Gang showed up and pulled the mask off the actual monster. As depraved as that all was, there was still the nature of the missing renters, dozens of them. Terry's case is still ongoing, and he's denied the worst accusations. Seems the police don't believe him. He would have killed us. They know that. Crews have been digging up his yard for the last few weeks looking for remains. June and I moved out of those houses. We aren't living together, but we have apartments in the same complex. We've been seeing a lot of each other. A relationship wasn't on my radar, but then again, neither was being haunted by a fake ghost. You take the good with the bad. June is definitely my good. You always worry that something that starts with such a bang may fizzle out, but it hasn't happened yet. We're taking things slow, but I know how special she is. The Scooby to my Shaggy. I hope she feels the same way. Every once in a while, though, I get an itch in the corner of my mind that I can't scratch. A feeling like one of those random men is stalking us, keeping track of where we go, what we do. I've started changing up my routines just in case. If they come after me, I'm going to fight. June will too, now that she's developed a taste for it. June and I often joke that we wish it had been a ghost scaring us. You can hire someone to send ghosts back to hell, but psychopaths, they walk among us. And that's the scariest thing I can think of. Susan Corndecki, Rain, Nelson Asada, Die Screaming, Me, Gasher, Dalamagara, That One Woodsman, Sonic